Guys, just like General Grievous said in episode 3, if now's the time to abandon ship, now's the time to abandon ship. So
100%.
fair warning to all those about to hear. So if you want to stick around, stick around. If it's too much for you to deal with, hey, no shame in abandoning ship. Now's the time.
All right.
Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand. I don't care.
Nerd. At. Hey everybody, Adrian here, and welcome back to Nerd at Heart. And we have a special episode today. So I'm your host, and along with me, as always, is my co-host
Patrick. As always, guys, good to be here. Good to see you here.
With us today is the host of a successful podcast, Malice, Ariel Cooksey. Hi, Ariel. How you doing today?
Hey, fellas. How's it going? It's so exciting. It's so exciting to see you out of our place of humble employment.
Just in case anybody's wondering, yeah, we actually work in the same place, and
we all work together,
doing the Lord's work.
There you go. If one can call it that.
So
I will.
Just think about the place that can hire all three of us.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting company, at least.
Certainly, yes. Thank you all so much for having me. I absolutely adore y'all, and I love the concept of your show and all of the. I mean, I've binged it. I'm not gonna lie, I binged it because I'm a nerd. So I'm like, yes, feed me all the nerddom. Let's go.
Well, you know what? We'll try. We'll try, but if anything we've learned with nerddom, we'll get it wrong some point, and somebody will be upset.
I mean, you're not wrong, man. Like, it's a rumor, and then we find out, it was put out there to like dissuade you from learning the real stuff.
Right.
We're all just sitting here looking like John Travolta in the meme.
So we're here to share everybody's passion. So let's kind of just go into it. I mean, we're going to have a conversation, but I want to ask the key question here. What makes you a nerd at heart?
Oh, I'm not sure there's anything about my heart that is not nerdy, truly. But this in particular, okay, so you mentioned my podcast, Malice.
Mm-hmm.
It is a true crime podcast. But I'll be honest, I was late to the podcast game. I kept being told, like, hey, you need to listen to podcasts. No, really, you need to listen to podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
It took me until 2019 before I was like, fine, I'll do it, right? So, of course, me being me, I've always been fascinated in human behavior. My background is in sociology and social psychology, okay? And I'm focused on deviant behavior and social control. I want to know what makes people do the weirdest stuff out there, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to look up some true crime podcasts. And at the time, I'm not saying now, but at the time, I found some really great true crime podcasts that would walk you through what's called a crime line, basically a timeline, but for the crime, right?
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, right?
Right.
Who, what, where, when, why. Great. Cool. Why? That was my question. That was really drew me in. I was like, I'm not finding the podcast that I want to listen to. And I was like, why can't I find it? And then I had a moment, right, where I was like, wait a second. I have the credentials to make that podcast.
Well, there you go.
So I did. That was the birth of Malice. So in July of 2019, I decided, you know what? I can do this. I want to know what causes people to do the aberrant things that they do.
Uh-huh.
And so what makes people malicious, right? And so I started doing the research. I did the research anyway because I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
So it's like, it can't be that hard to turn it into a podcast.
Yeah, so it's like why Batman sees his villains, like the reason they are, like, why
100%.
are you the way you are?
Yes.
Why did you do the way you did this?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, so just like the world's greatest detective, Batman, you've become I won't say the world's greatest detective, but you've become a detective towards, the criminal deviants that, throughout history.
Absolutely, or at least I'm giving it the old college try, right?
Hey, I said detective, man. I gave you a modicum of it.
Right. No, I feel fantastic. I feel super now. It's great.
So I mean, that's got to be really interesting. I mean,
it is, and some of it is absolutely vile. I'm not gonna lie. Like there are, you want to know about nerdy? Like a lot of people think nerdy in terms of like I'm really into like Tombstone. I am, by the way, that movie. Oh, let's go. But like things that. But I have like crime scene photos in my phone that I analyze for my show. Like that's how nerdy I am. I have them in my phone that I'm like, oh, hang on, daughter, cat. Oh, another cute one of my cat. That's a decapitated.
Oh, the Black Lotus. Isn't that nice?
I feel like any time like your phone's gonna get subpoenaed, the court's just like, you don't want to know what we found in there.
You mentioned
60
Tombstone.
photos of a cat. 500 photos of a crime scene.
You mentioned Tombstone, so this is what I want to tell you. What I did yesterday.
Tell me.
Is because I teach math in general, so I was teaching a concept, and I can't remember. It's like I wrote down so he remembers because I did this, and I do this quite often, and I wrote the answer, and I said he'll be your huckleberry.
Okay.
And the students like, what is that?
Yeah, they're all sitting there scratching.
And I'm sitting here like,
what does that mean?
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? And I had to explain it was a movie.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
yes. Well, and people. Okay, so nerdy. You guys are gonna get this. Obsessed with Tombstone. In fact, I don't think you can see it, but I have a signed Doc Holliday photo on my back wall here. Right, I've got a Doc Holliday bobblehead. I've got like postcards from Tombstone. But when people ask me about like that, I'm your huckleberry. That's just my game, right? It's like what is he's saying? I'll be your pallbearer.
Yeah,
like I will carry your casket. But people don't know that, so it's one of those things. It's like, no, my friend, no. He's
don't use it the way you're using it.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think that word means what you think it means.
I know. Like with me, I just loved it. I loved it. It's so much. It's just, I don't know. It's, No, I am, Tombstone's one of those really great movies, and it's kind of a shame it's starting to fall into old. Yeah. Actually, it's kind of already old.
They better not remake it.
Because that's early 90s,
Look, we all know Hollywood is scraping the barrel as it is. They're even using the stuff under the barrel that's been living there for a while. They're going to remake it. It's going to happen.
Patrick and I sit there and we especially Star Wars, debate this all the time about what's wrong with them. And
he's not wrong. I sound about like that after lunch. What if they just did this?
Why did they make that movie?
Right.
So no.
I agree with this.
And y'all, for the listeners, I've witnessed some of these conversations.
We sat there. What was it? I got irate about something today. Indiana Jones. That's what I got to do.
Yeah, you were real irate about it. I mean, you went on a whole 15, 20-minute thing, and I'm just sitting there like, dang, you really are upset about it.
Yeah. No,
it's passion. It's passion, Patrick.
I know. I wasn't arguing. I was just like, oh, I thought you were like upset. I didn't know you were upset.
Right.
Look, man, I'm going to cry myself to sleep. Next time I have to think about Harrison Ford walking to the door with a bat and his little droopy boxer, going, there's Indy. Thank God.
Of Indiana Jones' Dial of Destiny. Oh my God. And he just went on a 20-minute tangent, and he's just like, why did we need 80-year-old Harrison Ford putting on the hat?
Yeah.
You know he's old. We all know he's old.
And there's the proof. It looks like my dad.
Oh boy.
Telling kids that the music's too loud. It's like, okay, This is what we walked into.
Right.
You know?
Indiana Jones, the man who used to punch Nazis and,
Yeah.
look for lost artifacts in the far reach of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a new mission today, people. Turn it
That's right.
down. I'm
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Dealing with the 60s youth.
Yeah.
You know?
So
And
the hippie culture, the hippie culture is coming.
For sure.
And, you know? I mean,
you in here smoking pot. I'm telling you.
It was still better than Crystal Skull. So either way. So all right.
Let me tell you, he said the same thing. He's like it still beats Crystal Skull.
Saying something, you know.
I told him. By the way, sidebar. They released a brand new video game, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. It's on Xbox right now and PC. It's on Xbox Game Pass. If you guys haven't gotten a chance to play that, it is incredible. It's honestly the Indiana Jones movie we should have gotten, even if video games aren't your thing.
Okay.
Go on YouTube. There's plenty of channels out there. They have the cinematics of it. It's wonderful.
Or do what I do and make your ex-husband. Well, I mean, not now, I guess. But when I was married, I would have my ex-husband like, I want to see how this plays out. I want to play it. You do it.
Yeah.
And I just watch.
But I mean, it's a really good game. I played it fully all the way through. I beat it 100%. It's been amazing. And I told Adrian about it, and I'm like, hey, man, you got to check this out. Yeah. This is the Indiana Jones we've been missing.
I've been playing the same game for 4 months. But kind of going back to what we were talking about, true crime, they've been trying to kill our childhood in Hollywood.
I was going to say, there's a link there. There's a little trauma. I understand. I get it.
There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of trauma for Adrian.
Let's talk about the true crime for a little bit. You're here talking about Malice. What do you think kind of rooted your interest in aberrant behavior and motives?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go. Let's go in the way back machine, right?
Oh Lord.
All right.
I am actually on the autism spectrum, and when you are neuroatypical in that way, we tend to experience emotion in different ways than people who are neurotypical, and so there's for me at least, and for a lot of people that I know actually who are in true crime even, who are on the spectrum as well, we pay a lot of attention to the way that people feel and what motivates behavior in order to try to better fit in to society. Like we, everyone, no matter where you fall on any spectrum, as human beings, we want to belong. And so by examining those things, there are things that are foreign to me that are very normal to most people, right? And so I wanted to understand those things. I got into acting very, very young. I said my first role in acting, I was 5. And I actually went to university originally on a full scholarship for musical theater because I took so much interest, I guess, in what motivated people to do what they do. And when I started looking into more obscure and more marginal types of behavior, I was like, okay, so if most people do this, why do these people do that? Like, I need to understand that, because if I can get the furthest on the outskirts, the outliers, right, in crazy ways, then I will have a better understanding of what makes people tick in general, right? So
it's a need to understand your fellow man.
100%,
by
yes.
learning the most extremist version of your fellow man.
Right. And it goes back to, and I'm going to nerd out a little bit right here.
By all means, that's why we're here.
There's a sociological theorist, Harold Garfinkel, right? Not like, like
not Garfunkel.
Yeah, no, not that one. That's a nerddom for a different day. No, Harold Garfinkel had this whole idea. He was like, in order to understand what is normal, we have to understand what is abnormal, right?
Oh, okay.
So he did what are called breaching experiments, where he would himself and then later his students, he would have them go out and break social norms to see how people would react, right? One of the very first ones that he did was in a bed sit type situation, right? So a room for rent.
Mm.
And he had a person take on this room, right? And then at a certain point in time, after he'd established himself, the habits, the whatever, he came home one day and acted as if he'd never seen the people who owned the place before. And
Okay.
their first reaction was, this guy, what is something wrong? Like, is he okay? What, is he crazy?
Yeah.
But eventually they got to a place where like, am I crazy? Like, what is the, and so by examining things like that, or, for instance, there was another time where students took a boombox into the mall, set it down in the middle of the floor, started up the music, and just started dancing. And seeing the way that people would react, because some people were walking by and like, what is happening? And then there were certain people who are like, okay, dope, let's go, and so they started joining in. And it's interesting because what is the line? What is the bright line between what is normal, what is abnormal?
Yeah.
Some people were joining in this. So it's not as aberrant as a person who's like, I've never seen you before. I don't know who you are, and so, that kind of inspired me to start looking at, okay, what is so outside of the realm of normal that we would go, and bristle, right? And if we find that, why does it happen?
All right.
Yeah.
No, that's really, all I can think of is, like Punk'd, he just kind of, he just basically punked, he Ashton Kutcher a couple of people.
Exactly right. Yes. Yes. It's like Punk'd. It's like Undercover Boss, where you're finding out, Impractical Jokers, one of my favorite shows. Impractical Jokers, where you're calling out in the waiting room for Cranges McBasketball. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, what is happening right now? Like, it is. It's that sort of like, where does the suspension of disbelief stop?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you're like, no, this isn't real, right? But yeah, it's that kind of fascination that draws me to look at some of the most horrific people, honestly. But yeah, I mean, it keeps me coming back for more, because there's so many nuances and there's so much to pick apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to ask, like, what is the typical listener or audience for true crime or Malice or other true crime podcasts?
So,
and why? Why do you think?
Oh, I can. Okay. Oh, let's go. All right. So typically,
well, you ready?
Yes. Let's go. Okay. So okay. So your audience is seeing I'm a nerd. All right. So for true crime in general, about 70% of the audience typically is going to be female, right? And the reason for that is because by listening and consuming true crime content, we feel as if we're arming ourselves against the types of crimes that could happen. Now, in some ways, that's accurate. I mean, there's certain things that we learn, right? Like, hey, don't do XYZ, right? Or this will put you in danger, or, this is considered high risk, where this is considered low risk. However, in general, that's not the case. Like, we're consuming it. It makes us feel more informed to consume this type of material, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to know it when we see it. You know what I mean? It's true, and so, but women are drawn to that. There are obviously men who are as well. Men can be victims just as easily as women in some cases, not all, but in some cases. Women tend to be victimized because of myriad social reasons. Number one, I mean, biologically, we tend to be smaller. We tend to be weaker in stature, right? But also, we are less hormonally driven in some ways than men, right?
Mhm.
So when you have, for instance, sexual crimes, they tend to be committed by men because
Yeah.
they have a higher level of aggression with testosterone and androgen,
Yeah.
right? Whereas women have a lower level of that. Okay, it is what it is. It's not like men are all bad or anything. It just,
the stats fall that way.
Exactly true.
Mm.
Exactly right. And so, when we look at victimology, which is fascinating to me, that's not the same as victim blaming, right?
Yeah.
But we can look at, say, for instance, trans youth, right?
Mhm.
Transgender youth, many of whom are unhomed, right?
Yeah.
Have been, estranged, kicked out, disowned, etc. It's horrific, because I'm sorry, just my own little 2 cents. Like,
Yeah,
it's
bro.
a kid. It's a kid.
Mhm.
Can we just chill for a minute? Like, take care of your child and
Yeah.
deal with the other stuff later, right? But
Yeah.
but they do end up in these situations, and a lot of times, if their parents are not accepting them, a lot of society doesn't accept them. They're confused. Teenagers in general are confused. But then we add this added dimension, and then we make them homeless, right? It's not a great recipe. So a lot participate in things like survival sex. So we have children who are being trafficked,
and
essentially.
I'm not trying to interrupt you. So you're saying, like,
Not at all.
society has almost labeled them as walking pariahs.
Yes, it's a very astute observation. Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of these youth, though, they have to find food. They have to find shelter. And what is the easiest way for these broke, homeless children to get money? Transact sex. It is what it is. And that is, for the record, sexual assault, statutory rape, etc. Right? But
all the bad stuff.
There are people who will always be out there to exploit. So when we look at vulnerability, that's something we would call high risk. People who are sex workers, especially on the streets, but in general, if you're an escort, if you're, an exotic dancer, if you're a sex worker, male, female, doesn't matter. We're looking at people who, for transactional purposes, will get into a stranger's car, will go to a stranger's hotel room, right?
Yeah.
These are high risk behaviors. That does not mean they deserve what happens to them. But we can understand that.
Yeah, because they have no choice.
Right. Where I come from, my background is also in working with traumatized individuals. So when you deal with trauma there's a huge part of it that creates coping mechanisms that may be maladaptive in the real world. Like you must lie to get food if you're a neglected child. However, in the real world, that can cause you real problems, right?
Yeah.
So, there's definitely an element of that as well. But I find victimology fascinating. But, again, it depends on who's the most vulnerable, right? And so when we think about, for instance, a woman jogging in Central Park at night, like probably has a ponytail. Well, guess what? If your hair's up, it's easier to grab. Like there are just certain things about it that suggest like the types of victims that are pursued most often. But I don't know if I just totally talked around the question, but nerding out a little bit. So
yeah. So one, why did we get there? Or what was the interest? It was the root.
Right.
And then two, like who's the audience?
The listenership. Yes.
I mean, because there's a stereotype in people's heads on who is the majority viewer or listener of a true crime podcast.
Right. I will say my podcast is a little bit of an outlier. I have about 60% female listenership and 40% male. So actually have a little bit heavier on the male side than normal. I mean, obviously still in the minority. But I wonder, being the social scientist I am, does that have to do with men's interest more so than the crime lines, but more in the why part of it that may appeal to more male listeners? Does you know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't know. It's just I'm postulating on my part, but who knows? Maybe
Yeah, no, I
someday I'll
mean,
do it.
no longer is it just an action consequence; it's a motivation,
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, I
Like
think that'd be.
what makes somebody manually strangle somebody versus shoot them? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like what is it about this person stabbed somebody, 48 times while this person walked up, shot him in the face and left? Like
Yeah.
I
there's
mean,
a
one's
huge
overkill.
difference.
Yeah, I mean, one's overkill. The
Right.
other's an assassination almost,
Right. And there are definitely pathologies that go along with
Yeah.
not only overkill, but the type of method, the MO,
Mhm.
right? The modus
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was intimate, close up, and personal. To stab
Yes.
somebody, you got to get within arm's
Yes.
reach.
Absolutely. And manual strangulation, that is probably the most horrifying to me because it is literally hands-on and takes
Yeah.
4 to 5 minutes of sustained pressure to end somebody's life by strangulation. That is a long, horrific way to go.
Yeah, bring a book.
Truly, yeah. It's just like, can you just to the right here so I can? Okay, great.
Yeah, look, you're getting in my light, dude. I mean,
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Dark
what's
humor.
Frodo
Good
going
humor.
to do now? Sorry, yeah, coping mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. There was an episode where I was talking specifically, the reason I did the episode was to talk about manual strangulation. And I went dead air, silence for 60 seconds. And I was like, now imagine that times 5.
Yeah.
And people wrote to me and they were like, oh my God, that was horrifying. And I was like, I know, it's a long time. Like, even 1 minute is a long time.
Yeah.
So,
and guys, just like General Grievous said in episode 3, if now's the time to abandon ship, now's the time to abandon ship. So 100%. Fair warning to all those about to hear. So if you want to stick around. If it's too much for you to deal with, hey, no shame in abandoning ship. Now's the time.
All right. So I will I'll move that section to the beginning because 30 minutes. If they're already 30 minutes in and we're getting a disclaimer,
no, edit.
Where?
However you see it.
Hasn't gone for the dark stuff yet.
I mean, you can cut that whole bit if you want to and just say something at the beginning.
No,
whatever. I wanted y'all to know. Like that, I'm not gonna.
She just talked about strangulation for 3 minutes. That wasn't dark.
Where can people find your podcast?
It's everywhere like a bad rash. All right. Any podcast platform that you listen to, I'm even on Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Apple. I mean, like everywhere. Okay. So all you have to do is put in Malice. It's going to probably pop up 2 different podcasts. One is Malice spelled out. I'll show you. This is the logo. Okay.
All right.
Malice, a true crime podcast. The other is Michael Malice. Who has a great thing going of his own. It's not my podcast. Just
okay.
So you know.
Not affiliated with you.
Not affiliated. Great guy. Great show. Check it out. Mine first. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, so where did you come up with the voice that you use with Malice? Because I know because you have a cadence to your voice when you're doing the true crime.
I do.
So I'm kind of curious about that.
First of all, okay, so I've been, like I said, an actor for a really long time. And so a lot of my accent, a lot of people are really surprised. I'm from Texas. I don't have a very distinguishable Texas accent, except for people who are from Texas are like, no, I can tell. But like, when I go up to like New York City, for instance, which is like my favorite place in the world, people are like, are you from like Pennsylvania? Like, where are you from? And I'm just like, no, Texas. But theater teaches you to kind of pick these things. Well, I wanted there to be a kind of gravity to my voice. And so I kind of drop my register a little bit. I'm very deliberate about the way that I pronounce things, So, when I do my introduction, predators, their acts are evil. We call them monsters. We say no human would perpetrate the crimes they have committed. But in truth, only human beings execute these horrific acts. And if you're like me, you want to know why. I'm Ariel Cooksey, and this is Malice. It's just to kind of give this sort of gravity to it, you know?
I mean,
but it's theatric. It is. It's theatric.
It's theatric. It's chilling. And it lets you kind of know, oh, this is what I'm signing up for.
Exactly.
So what you're saying is saying it in that method gives it gravitas.
Yes.
As opposed to doing it like Gomer Pyle.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. You know.
And that's when he killed him with a sledgehammer.
Yeehaw, let's talk about strangling people.
Minor diatribe, just a really minor one. You know the song, you know the book. I mean, I'm sure your audience has known about whatever. There's a whole fandom for this. But 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I never read it.
No,
I was like, if you want smut, I can point you towards better smut, right? Like, this is not, whatever. But I listened to an entire chapter of that book because Gilbert Gottfried read it.
Yes, no, Gilbert Gottfried. Yeah. Rest R.I.P. by the way.
Yes, R.I.P.
I miss Iago from Aladdin.
I used to, speaking of Gilbert Gottfried, I listened to up to his passing the Gilbert Gottfried's great, amazing, colossal podcast.
So good.
Yeah, and it's so good. And you know what's so funny is like if you guys, just to plug a show that still is out there but no longer goes. It's a fantastic show if you want to learn about old Hollywood, interview a whole bunch of people. One of my favorite interviews ever was him and Bob Einstein, Super Dave Osborne.
Lovely.
Before he passed away, like half the people he interviewed have all passed.
That's wild.
At this point.
Yeah.
You know? But anyways, I mean, including Gilbert Gottfried. But yeah, okay, so yes. Talk about somebody that partakes in some weird behavior. You know, that was the guy. You know?
Yes. But I mean, truly, miss you, buddy.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you. I shed a tear and poured half a bottle out after when I found out.
100%, yeah. And it's throbbing, man. I'm sorry.
Just to let you know, the audio levels are great right now. You know, there in no way are they spiking, or my ears bleeding.
Oh no! Oh no! I'm sorry.
But good thing about cans, they keep the blood in, you know. So
truly, yeah, absolutely.
Just wait until I take them off, though. It'll be horrifying. We'll do a podcast about it.
Yeah, it'll be on the podcast. And that's when he removed his headphones, and the blood began to come forth. You know, and it's just like as he stared at the red on his hand.
All right, guys. Well, that was, Ariel, thank you for coming through.
You're so welcome.
Coming on our show. Absolutely wonderful.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
Guys, if you enjoyed that, she's going to be coming back for another episode, possibly next week, for our special Valentine's Day episode.
Look, love gone wrong, baby. Love
there you go.
Wrong.
Feel the love that's gone wrong. It sounds so evil.
And it is.
I feel like I've had one of those.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
Sir.
I love you having gone wrong.
It ain't cinnamon, I'll tell you that.
Was that her nickname?
Oh no!
Oh. Shots fired.
Oh no! Poor cinnamon.
It was
R.I.P. Okay.
Oh no! It's misleading. No one saw coming. Adrian was the killer. We thought he was the victim.
Oh no!
I blame Vincent.
It's all Vincent.
He taught me how to do. Yeah. Okay.
Thank y'all so much. No, seriously, I love y'all. I'm so excited to come back. Thank you so much.
Will do. All right, folks. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
All right.